today I just welcome all of you to the fascinating world of infrared. We will discuss about this technology and its utilization in industry, how this technology is good for temperature measurement. So let us start with infrared. It's a little bit confusing with visible light. Sir Frederick William Herschel, he discovered this invisible light. He was a German-born British astronomer, and while watching the sky, different stars, in 1781, he found Galileo, the planet in galaxy, and he was observing sun to find its sunspots. For that, he was using a very big telescope made by himself. In background, you can see the photo. It's a 40 feet long focal length telescope he made, and he was observing sun. So to reduce the intensity of the light, he was using different color filters. Then he found that while using different filters, the intensity of heat coming to his eyes are different. While using a blue filter, green filter, red filter, the intensity of light is decreasing, but sometimes temperature is increasing and decreasing. It leads a curiosity to study the temperature of different colors. For that, he made a very simple technique. He split the light by using a prism, and by using a simple mercury-filled glass thermometer, he was measuring the temperature of each color. In the visible spectrum, right from this violet to red, he was moving the thermometer, and he could find that temperature is increasing from violet to red. As a curiosity, he measured above the red spectrum. Then he found more energy is lying in that area. He called that area is infrared. Infra in Latin means below red spectrum. So that was the starting of this technology, that he found that more energy from sun is coming not in the form of visible light but in the form of infrared. Thermocouple and RTDs are very old technology. Comparatively, this is very young technology. In 1800 only this infrared discovered, and to make it industrialization, it took more time. It's around 125-year-old, and thermocouple is much longer. So this technology is younger, so there are a lot of confusions in industry how to use this very effectively for temperature measurement. Infrared technology has many advantages as well as many disadvantages for temperature measurement in industry. The basic advantage is it's very fast. You can measure temperature around 98% within 2 milliseconds. There are companies who are manufacturing parameters in microseconds. It is not possible with a contact sensor. It needs time to reach the equilibrium. And if you want a fast response time, what you have to do is you have to reduce the mass of the sensor in thermocouple or RTD. If you reduce the mass, it is not suitable for different type of application. If there is a velocity or something, you cannot put a very thin thermocouple for such application. For here, infrared parameters are very fast. Within a fraction of a second, you can reach to the peak temperature. The next advantage is it is not affecting the temperature what you are measuring. For example, if you have a glass of boiling water and you want to measure the temperature, if you put a thermocouple there, it absorbs the temperature from this boiling water and both reach to an equilibrium. This is a non-contact technology, so it is not affecting the temperature what you are measuring. Third is, this is not affecting any chemically aggressive media, any acid or electricity conducting material. You cannot put a thermocouple, so you can use a non-contact pyrometer. But please understand, this is not a replacement of thermocouple or RTD. If a solution is there with thermocouple, nobody is going to use a pyrometer. Pyrometer is just another technology where thermocouple cannot measure. The basic disadvantage of this technology is it can measure only surface temperature. It cannot penetrate to any media. Means if there is a liquid or solid, it can measure only the surface temperature, not the inside temperature. And the other major disadvantage is the accuracy mentioned by any manufacturer is just comparative to a black body only. In real world, in real application, no one can claim the accuracy. In any data sheet you can say it's 0.3% or 0.5%. It is just in front of a black body. But thermocouple is not like that. If it has a certain uncertainty, it is uniform for any application. Here, it depends the surface condition. If surface condition is changing, the accuracy is changing. Maybe different customer, same application but different atmospheric conditions, so different accuracies. Then atmospheric conditions are affecting this temperature measurement. Fumes, water vapor, different type of gases, it affects this measurement. So that are the plus and minus of this technology. Yes, I told you that sunlight is coming to Earth, around 55% is infrared, below 700 micron, and around 40 to 43% is visible, and some of ultraviolet. Heat can transmit in three ways: conduction, convection, and radiation. So we are interested in radiation. Radiation is the process by which a body can lose its energy even in vacuum. It don't need any media to transmit. That's why we are able to get the heat from sun. There is no media, it is coming through vacuum. For convection or conduction, you need a media. Okay. Here you can see three different type of stars. You can see a red star, a yellow star, and a blue star. Normally if you see the star, all are white in color. But if you watch it through a telescope, then you can see different colors. Stars has different colors. Why it has different colors? You can see the graph on the top. The emission from different stars are in different wavelength. You can see the visible light spectrum. The first red star, the peak is near to the yellow area, and the middle one, that is our sun, it has in the blue area, and here it is in the ultraviolet, the third one. The peak emission is in ultraviolet, and the middle one, the peak is in yellow and blue, and here it is in red spectrum. So it is depend, any object, it is emitting radiation. The peak of that emission is in which part, it determines the color of that object. For example, this bottle is green because it is absorbing green color and it is emitting green color. That's why we can see it's green. If anybody has any doubt, I can stop and explain you. Here you can see in the graph three different stars, Bellatrix and Sun and Betelgeuse, three different stars. So the first one, you can see that maximum intensity of its emission is in ultraviolet spectrum. You can see 0.31 micron, and Sun has its peak emission in 0.45, near to 5, that means in blue color, and the younger one, Betelgeuse, it has 1.9 micron wavelength. So that determines the color, blue, yellow, and red. So how to understand how much energy is emitted from a surface, in which wavelength this energy is emitted? So it's very simple. By using the Wien's displacement law, you can calculate at what radiation wavelength that maximum energy is coming to us. This is the constant 2898. Temperature in Kelvin, you divide 2898, then you will get the spectrum at which that object is emitting. Here I just made an example that sun's temperature, surface temperature, outer surface temperature is 5778 Kelvin. To know at which wavelength sun is emitting maximum. So 28 divided by 5778 is equal to 0.501 micron. That means sun is emitting more energy in this wavelength. This is a point you have to note. Later we will discuss more about this. So this is suitable for you also. Suppose you are a steel industry customer. Your temperature is 1400 degree. So you have to find which type of pyrometer I have to use, because there are a lot of pyrometer working in different wavelengths, 8 to 14, 3.9, 4.3, 5.14, 0.9, 1.1, different type of pyrometers are available. So you have to see my temperature is 1500, so which type of pyrometer I have to use. So you just divide 2898 divided by your temperature in Kelvin, then you will get a peak of emission. Then you have to find, yes, I want to purchase a pyrometer working in 0.9 micron or 1.1 micron or 1.6 micron. If your temperature is say 100 degree, then you calculate this, then you can see that the result is in longer wavelength, 8 to 14, somewhere around 11 or 12 micron. So that is the utilization of this Wiens displacement for industry. You can understand which wavelength to be used for right application. Pyrometer is a simple instrument. It's like a normal CCD camera. Inside there is a sensor, semiconductor. Upon incident of radiation, it generates microvolt. So you can process that in front of a black body to put into a curve so that it can be calibrated to a certain temperature range. You can see all part in a pyrometer to the CCD camera. It has lens, it has apertures, filters, sensor, electronics, amplifier, and converters, A to D converters.
What is the basic element which sensor radiation?
We are discussing it in this slide later. Okay. This is electromagnetic spectrum. All energy is lying in this spectrum, right from the gamma rays, X-rays, microwave, ultraviolet, visible, infrared, radio waves, everything. The difference is the wavelength at which it is coming to us. The cosmic rays, ultraviolet, we cannot see. We can see, V means the human eye can detect only a small spectrum of light, that is 0.4 to 0.7 micron, 400 to 700 nanometer. Many insects like rattlesnake, it can measure in infrared, and we cannot hear ultraviolet. We cannot see ultraviolet. So there are different insects. It has sensitivity to different wavelength. Human eye have sensitivity only to the visible light. That's why we are not able to feel. We are not able to see infrared. But we can feel infrared by our skin is a sort of sensor. We can feel infrared, but we cannot see infrared. It can be classified near, short, mid, and long wavelength infrared for temperature measurement. For temperature measurement, we are using near, short, and mid wavelength. From 900 micron up to 14 micron, we are using for temperature measurement. Beyond and below that, we are not using for temperature measurement, because if we are using something near to visible light, so the measurement will be affected by the visible light. For example, if I am using a wavelength of 0.6 micron and the daylight is ending at 0.5 micron, so my pyrometer will be sensitive to the visible light or any artificial light in the industry. So as a matter of safety, all manufacturers are using pyrometer working from 0.9 to 14 micron. As I told you in the initial slide, it is measuring the emitted energy. It's not the reflected energy. There was a misconception that it is emitting radiation and it is coming back and we are sensing it. It's not like that. What we are doing is, every object in the universe is emitting radiation. It's heat radiation. Above absolute zero, that object is emitting infrared radiation. So these detectors are sensitive and it can convert into a microvolt. So every properties of every surface, it has three properties. The incident energy on that surface can either be transmitted or can be absorbed or can be reflected. Nothing else is possible. The sum of these three is 100%. If X amount of energy is incident on that surface, either it will be transmitted or it will be absorbed or it will be reflected off. the emission capacity of the surface is equal to the absorption capacity. If the surface is rough, it can absorb 80% of the energy, so it can emit 80% of energy. That is called emissivity. Emissivity is equal to the absorption capacity. So the rougher the surface, it has more absorbing capacity and it has high emissivity. So this word emissivity will be repeating again and again whenever you are reading pyrometer or related articles, because it is measuring the emitted energy from the surface. That's what I told you first slide, that the major disadvantages of technology is, if you don't know the real emissivity of the surface, you are measuring little inaccurately. And again, there is another problem. Over a period of time, the emissivity of the surface will change. Like a car. Today it's a very new car. After a few days, it will get dirty. Like today you have a shaft of new motor. It's like a chromium plated. It has very low emissivity. After 6 months in operation, it will accumulate dust and oil and everything. Then for pyrometer concern, it is no more a metal. It is a dusty surface. It can measure only the surface. So if surface condition is changing, emissivity will also change and the temperature measurement will affect. For example, a cement kiln. If I am going to measure a cement kiln, for me means a pyrometer concerned, I am measuring not a metal surface. I am measuring a non-metallic surface because there are red oxide or paint over that. So pyrometer is measuring the surface temperature. So tomorrow, if kiln is rotating and some part of the paint is peeling off, so that part has different emissivity. So that is the disadvantage of this technology, that it is totally related to the emissivity. So here what you can understand is, emissivity is the capacity of absorbing of that surface. If a surface can absorb 70%, it can emit 70%. The property of transmission is very few in industry. Plastic, glass, some fabrics, it has transmission. Otherwise, you can see in real world either absorption or reflection. So you can say that absorption is high, reflection is low. If reflection is high, absorption is low. A chromium plated bumper is like a mirror. It has high reflection, low absorption, that means low emissivity. So while measuring such surfaces, you have to reduce the emissivity. And also, you have to take care that if you are measuring a surface with high reflection, so it can reflect the energy from other sources. So you have to conceal it by some shade. Especially if you are going to aluminum industry, aluminum is like a mirror. So if there is a light over that, so that light energy will also emit to the sensor. So you have to put a shade. That's what I'm explaining. Accuracy, you can claim 0.1%. 0.1%. Normally in industry it is 0.3%, but there are pyrometers available in 0.1% accuracy. But that accuracy is just in front of a black body, because in industry you don't know the real emissivity of the object what you are measuring. If you are measuring a cement kiln, it's dusty, it's smoky, everything is there. So you cannot say that emissivity of the surface is 90%, it is variating. So pyrometers are basically for repeatability. You can have very good repeatable temperature measurement. Accuracy is only an estimation. A thermocouple, if you put a thermocouple into a boiling water, it will show 100 degrees, no problem. But pyrometer, you have to tune it first. You should know an approximation of the temperature. Then you set the emissivity. Then you can reach the real temperature. So,
I have an oven.
you have an oven, yeah?
Oven. Okay. So that means 5 meters length.
Yeah.
Okay. And there are 3 coils in that oven.
Mm-hmm.
The middle coil will be having more temperature, and the last and front will be having less. Okay. If I use this pyrometer,
If you have a direct access to that coil, then you can measure it.
I cannot access that coil because it's beside that wall.
Yeah.
So when I show that pyrometer, it directly
It measures the first object what is coming in front of that.
the first object will be the last portion of the oven.
No, if I am aiming a pyrometer from here, to that wall, if something is coming first, it can measure only this one, not beyond this one.
Okay, so if I want to measure the different type of temperature, so I should go beside and
There are possibilities, because I don't know the construction of your oven. There are fiber optic pyrometers available.
it is rectangle, it is complete rectangle. Okay, so as I said, 3 coils are there. 1, 2, 3. The 2 coil will be
It's an induction furnace?
pardon?
Induction furnace?
Induction.
It's an induction heating.
Yes, induction.
The best way is, if there is possibility to put a small sensor near to the coil,
What sensor?
we have pyrometers called fiber optic pyrometers. So it's an electronic unit and a lens. Lens can be mounted near to your coil, and the signal can be taken by a fiber optic to the electronics. If you have some possibilities to make around 12 millimeter dia hole, you can put that sensor, that fiber optic there, and you can take the signal. That is a possibility, one possibility. Sorry, black body. Black body is an object which has only one property, that is absorption and emission. All the incident energy on this black body is absorbed. That's why we are saying that black body has an emissivity of 100%. In real world, it's not possible. So we can have an approximation of say 0.999 like that. So this is a simple way of constructing a black body. If you take a sphere and make a small hole, and if you heat this sphere, the energy will be trapped inside. It cannot go, like it will reflect it inside. So inside you can have very high absorption capacity. Here what you should understand is, as the temperature increases, the temperature of the surface increases, so emissivity will also increase. That means, for example, this is a ladle of steel. This is a ladle of molten steel. I cannot stand here because it's too hot. This is a bottle of water in room temperature. I have no sense because its capacity to emit is very low in low temperature. So here, if the temperature is increasing, emissivity will also increase. And the next, if temperature increases, the maximum emission, the peak emission will move to the lower wavelength. That means high temperature, like sun's temperature, it is in 0.5 micron. If you want to measure 1500 degree, its peak is in 1 micron. If you want to measure room temperature, its peak in 8 to 14 region. So if the temperature increases, the maximum intensity will shift to the shorter wavelength, and if the temperature increases, emissivity will also increase. Here you can see this small example. 0 degree temperature, the maximum intensity is very low. Temperature is reaching 500 degree. So it starts emitting a little bit yellow red light. So if you heat any object above 500 degree, it will start glowing little bit red color. So that object is emitting infrared energy as well as light energy. Heating it, at one point it will start melting. Say a clear molten steel, 1600, 1700 degree, it is colorless. Why it is colorless? Because it is emitting infrared as well as the full spectrum of visible light. It is emitting 7 colors of light, so we see it colorless. If temperature decreases, it will be red because it is emitting only the red part of the spectrum. Here, the most important part I told you, emissivity. This accuracy of temperature measurement is dependent on emissivity. So what is emissivity? Emissivity is the ratio at a particular temperature how much energy is black body is giving to the real object. Say I have steel at 1000 degree and a black body at 1000 degree. So I can say that emissivity of black body is 100%, it is emitting 100%, and steel is emitting only 80%. So we say that emissivity of steel is 80%. The rest of the energy is either reflected. Factors that concern emissivity. Emissivity is not a fixed criteria, it is changing. So what are the major factors which is affecting emissivity? First is material. Different material in the universe has different emissivity. All the organic material like wood, carpet, coal, whatever, it has very high emission irrespective of the wavelength. It is called gray bodies. It has a certain percentage of emission in all wavelengths. So coal, carpet, wood, it has an emissivity somewhere around 80 to 90%. But in next photo you can see a steel billet. A steel billet, one side is cut. So if someone is asking me what is the emissivity of steel, I cannot say what is the emissivity of steel. You see the condition of that steel bar. It has a very bright surface and it has a very dark surface. So the dark surface has very high emissivity and the bright surface has very low emissivity. A plus R is equal to 100%. Absorption plus reflection is equal to 100%. So in the steel bar, you can see that cut area has high reflection, means low absorption, low emissivity. The side is oxidized in black color, it has very high emissivity. And the third one is viewing angle. In different, it is scattering to all direction. From this object, if it is heating, the radiation is going to all direction. So the maximum is going in 60-degree angle. So it is better to have a 60-degree angle if you are installing a pyrometer in industry. There is no need that it has to be 90-degree perpendicular always. Then third is temperature. If temperature is increasing, emissivity is also increased. And wavelength. In lower wavelength, it has high emission in high temperature. And third is the geometry of the object. Different shape has different emissivity. Here I just put a small example of a heat sink in aluminum industry. I told you how we can make a black body. One method of making a black body is you take a spear and make a small hole. So inside there will be a cavity. That cavity has 100% emission. The other method is any object, you drill a hole 6 times deeper than the diameter. If a steel billet, I make a 60 millimeter depth, and inside that cavity it has an emissivity of 100%. So here you can see heat sink made of aluminum. So between these fins there is a cavity. It has very high emissivity, but the surface is aluminum and very low emissivity. So if you put a pyrometer and the heat sink is coming, the sensor is getting different emissivity. So will be a dancing effect. So different. And again another one. We can take a sample of example of ladle. Ladle with full of steel. You put a pyrometer on top and you are measuring the temperature of the surface temperature of this steel. In full condition, its filled condition, the pyrometer is getting energy say 40%. And you are pouring it, so the level is going down. So what happened? The ladle is getting empty and there will be a black body effect because diameter divided by multiplied by 6, if the depth is increasing, emissivity will increase. So this we observed in many industry. Customer is asking, it's very surprising, first time it is giving right temperature. As the pouring starts, instead of going down the temperature is increasing. What is the reason? Because there is emissivity is increasing due to this geometry. What we have to understand is high temperature to be measured in shorter wavelength. That is the most important part in this application in industry, because you can see pyrometers starting from minus 60 to 2000 degree. There are pyrometers available from minus 60 to 2000 degree. It is working in very longer wavelength. So this is not like a universal instrument. I purchase one pyrometer and use for all application. It's not possible. You have to find the right pyrometer for right application. For steel industry, they are asking a pyrometer from minus 60 up to 2000. There is no sense, because they used to measure somewhere around 600 to 1600. So you don't need a pyrometer working from minus 20 to 2000 degree. So if you want to measure high temperature, you should use a pyrometer working in lower wavelength like 0.9, 1.6. And at the same time, if you want to measure low temperature, like if you are going to a bus bar, you want to see the temperature of that bus bar or a motor shaft, then you have to use a pyrometer working in longer wavelength, 8 to 14 long wavelength, because your temperature is 50 to 125 degree. So don't purchase a pyrometer for a universal application. It's not possible. For pyrometers, in high temperature measurement, pyrometers are working in 0.9, 1.1, 1.6, 2.2 and 2.6 micron wavelength. This is a most common optical material is fused silica. Fused silica, you can see the graph. It can transmit energy right from ultraviolet to 2.6 micron wavelength. So if good fused silica can transmit ultraviolet, visible light and infrared. So the pyrometers working up to 2.6 micron wavelength can use as lens made of fused silica. See, you can see above that there is no transmission. And this is CaF2, calcium fluoride. See the graph, visible light 0.4 to 0.7 micron, and it has a transmission right from 0.3 up to 10 micron. The earlier one, fused silica, it has only 2.6. So this has extended up to 10 micron. So pyrometer working in 3.9 for carbon dioxide, 3.9 for carbon dioxide, 4.3 and 5.414 for glass. Any pyrometer working in this region will have a lens made of calcium fluoride, CaF2. It has less disadvantage because it is little bit soluble in water. So if there is lot of moisture, the quality of lens will deteriorate. But you have no other way. If you want to use a pyrometer working in 3.9, 4.3, 5.14, the lens should be of calcium fluoride. This is ZnSe, zinc selenide. Again you can see the wavelength right from visible, it can go up to 20 micron. So I want a pyrometer to be measured at low temperature, 8 to 14 micron pyrometer. 8 to 14 micron pyrometer working with a laser. I need a pyrometer with laser targeting. So low temperature pyrometer working in 8 to 14 should use a ZnSe lens. This is germanium. Germanium, you can see, is no transmission in visible light. Its transmission is starting from 5 micron. So pyrometer working in 8 to 14 micron without any laser light can use germanium as a lens material. It is like a gold color, so you cannot see through this germanium. So any pyrometer, if it is using a germanium lens, there is no possibility of laser light, there is no possibility of see through the lens, because that lens is opaque for visible light. Then sensors. There are different type of sensors available. This is a indium gallium arsenide sensor. We call it INGAS sensor. INGAS sensors are very good for high temperature application. It has different peak. Different type of INGAS sensors are available. It's very easy. It's a semiconductor. By changing the combination of indium and gallium, you can have the peak emission in different wavelength. You can see here 1.7 micron, 1.9 micron, 2.2 micron, 2.4 micron and 2.6 micron. These are the 5 spectral range used for temperature measurement by using an indium gallium arsenide sensor. If you are using an indium gallium arsenide sensor, you can start temperature measurement from 100 degree up to 2500 degree. So most of the temperature application can be measured by a INGAS sensor. And this is a silicon sensor. This is the same sensor which is used in a CCD camera. You can see that silicon sensors are very sensitive right from the ultraviolet, visible and infrared. So for temperature measurement, what we do is, in front of the sensor we put a filter so that It can limit the all other unwanted energy, and silicon sensor is very good for very high temperature application, especially in steel industry or any R&D application. If you want to measure high temperature up to 3000 degree, right from 600 degree, you can use silicon sensor. That's all for this because it's a very vast subject, so it's not easy to explain all. May I just ask a simple question, only one question. In the first slide, I told you that by Wien's displacement law, I told you that the peak of emission of sun is in 5 micron, 0.5 micron. The sun's peak emission is 0.5 micron. So it was a question in my mind also. So why could William Herschel found more temperature in invisible area? This question is clear? What Mr. William Herschel was doing, he was measuring temperature of different color. Okay. So he found more temperature below red area. But in the first slide we told that sun's peak emission is in the green area, 500 micron. So why he could not measure high temperature in the green area? We will go to the first slide, so it will be easy for you to understand. Here, see this middle one is sun. Its peak emission is 500 micron in the green area. So he was measuring the temperature of color. So why could not measure high temperature in green? Because he is measuring sun temperature. Sunlight is splitted into 7 color, and he was measuring, and he could find more temperature in red area rather in green area. But practically it should be in green area because its peak emission is in green. You can think about that.
When you are having the energy source combined together to form a wavelength, all the wavelengths are combining together, and you are, through the sun you are getting the emissivity or whatever the energy that is being produced. Then at the uniform portion you are getting the centralized energy pattern. Whereas when you are trying to split out, then you are able to disintegrate the energy patterns, wherein I hope the energy pattern lies more on to the red, where the wavelength is very less.
This approximation. Any better explanation from someone? Fortunately, the life in Earth is possible due to our atmosphere. Because in atmosphere, there are a lot of particles, there are a lot of gases. And these gases has the same property of absorption, reflection and transmission. If atmosphere is not there, what will happen? No life is possible because the 6000 degree Kelvin energy will come to the earth. This atmosphere is working as a blanket, and it has different gases like nitrogen and different gases. It has absorption capacity. So here in this screen you can see that this is called atmospheric window. This is green color, is the peak emission of sun. Fortunately, the atmosphere is absorbing energy at this, blocking energy at this wavelength. That's why you can see that the energy coming to earth is in maximum in 500 micron. That's why he could find more temperature below 500 micron. That's the explanation for this. And this is the reason why all the plants are green. All the plants are green because it has high absorption in the green spectrum. Sun is emitting in high at green spectrum, and this chlorophyll is absorbing in the green spectrum and emitting in green spectrum. So we can see it's green. And fortunately and surprisingly, these colors are only imagination. This color is only for you and me. This is green for me, but for a cat concerned, it's not so green. For a parrot concerned, it is not green. For a snake, it can see invisible what we cannot see. So this is one thing, and this next is very simple for kids. The sky is blue, the same thing. The same is the reason why sky is blue. Because when sun is on top of your head, the energy is coming. Fortunately, the peak in blue spectrum is scattering off. It is not coming to earth. It is scattered. That's why we can see the sky as blue. Blue light is scattered. Evenings, what is happening? Next thing, the sky is blue and the horizon is little gray. Why? Because when sun is coming down, it took more distance to come to your eye. So it is scattering, 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 and all these scattering are combining together, so it will become white. Thank you. If any question regarding application, if you have some specific application which is not able to solve by a thermocouple, maybe we can recommend some special type of pyrometers for that application, some special type of installations.
What is the ideal distance from which you have to measure?
Yes. The basic thing you have to take.
Covered in your session.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
the distance not covered.
Yes. I told you it's a very vast subject, so I have only 1 hour. The basic thing you have to understand is you cannot change your object, and sometimes there is a restriction of space. If I am drawing a wire of 10 millimeter, I have to draw a wire of 10 millimeter. I cannot increase it to 20 millimeter. And maybe it's like a camera, as I told you in first. Every lens has a field of view. So good pyrometer will have good field of view. The cheap pyrometer will have very big field of view, because it depends on the sensor. Say I want to measure 100 degree. I want to measure 100 degree, and the sensors are very tiny. The sensitive area is 1 millimeter. And in front of that sensor, we are putting a diaphragm of 0.25 millimeter. That means the sensor is getting energy from a very small hole of 0.25 millimeter. So that energy may not be sufficient to get energy from 100 degree. So what people can do? They can use a big lens and gather more energy. If you use a very big field of view, then your object size will be very big. So before installing a pyrometer, you have to read the field of view. Say it will be written as a ratio, 100:1, 50:1, 200:1. This way it will be explained in the data sheet. That means if the field of view is 100:1, from 1 meter we are measuring a temperature of 10 millimeter area. 2 meter you are measuring a temperature of 20 millimeter area. So the basic thing is your field of view should be equal to your object size, lesser than or equal to the object size. Your field of view is say 50 millimeter and your object is only 10 millimeter, so your sensor is getting energy from the object as well as from the surrounding. In some application you cannot help it, so you can use a two-color pyrometer. If small object and oscillating object, you can use a two-color pyrometer. And sometimes say for example, yesterday I was discussing with my colleague, they are looking for pouring temperature measurement. Like that there are different applications. It is sometimes oscillating. If you go to wire manufacturing, the wire is moving before it is getting insulated. So it will have a jumping. So if you use a pyrometer, simple pyrometer, so object will be moving, so temperature will be dancing. So you can put a scanner in front of this pyrometer. So scanner will scan in an amplitude of 12 degree or like that. So different application solutions are available today. If object is small, you can use a fiber optic pyrometer. Fiber optic pyrometer, I told you again, fiber optic pyrometer is a new technique, not a new technique, comparatively new technique. So in some application, you cannot use a pyrometer, you cannot use a thermocouple. For example, an induction heater, a very big induction machine. If I put a pyrometer near to an induction machine, due to this electromagnetic effect, this electronic will not work. In that case, what we can do is, we can take this electronic part away from this electromagnetic field, and we can put only the lens to this area, and we can take the signal through a fiber optic. This is called fiber optic pyrometers. It is good for many applications. Sometimes the ambient temperature is very high. If you are going to a glass industry, on glass melting furnace, top temperature is somewhere around 300, 400 degree. You cannot stand there. For 5 minutes you cannot stand there. It's very hot. So, and water is not allowed for such a high temperature area because it will cause for blast. So what you can do is, you can put only electronic away from this heat area and you can take the signal from this fiber optic. So small object, very high ambient temperature, electromagnetic field, you can use fiber optic photometers.
We can have 10-15 minutes of application. I just put the
Okay.
maybe a little bit old presentation, but it has most of the things.
One more question.
Yeah.
If the billet is scale formation is more,
Yeah.
even your two color parameter also not necessary.
For a billet concern,
Multi-wavelength is best option.
no. For billet, you don't need a multi-wavelength and you don't need a ratio parameter. What you need is a single color parameter with a very small spot size, because the billet is not uniform always. It can be in any part. So we have two methods. One method is using a scanner in front of the pyrometer. You can put a scanner in front of the pyrometer so it can scan, and this pyrometer has a facility, it's called peak picking. It can take the peak temperature only, not the everyday temperature. So the oxidized surface, say only 600 degree temperature, and the real billet has 950 temperature. So if it is scanning, it take only the peak temperature of 980 and it will hold until unless next peak is coming. So that is one method. Otherwise, if you are not using a scanner, you can just put a pyrometer in the peak picking mode. So once this billet is moving, because it's not stationary, billet is moving. So it will get over the length a point where there is no scale and it can hold that temperature. So in software there are a lot of facilities available, and fortunately here in AST, I want to tell you that AST is the only company in India making infrared pyrometers, and Thomson is the only company in the only South Asia or in Asian countries have an accreditation of NABL up to 2700 degree temperature. So it's a very complicated process, not like a thermocouple. Thermocouple is very simple. You can make it in your home. Take a MI cable, cut it, fuse it, thermocouple is ready. But it has many very small components. As I told you, maybe today evening you can see how it is manufactured. The sensor is measured through a 0.25 millimeter hole, and everything should be in line. A small mechanical inaccuracy will make the sensor blind. It is not getting any energy. So it needs very, very accurate mechanical parts. It needs very special people understanding optics. Unfortunately in India, optics is a very weak technology. Very few guys are available in optics. And it has physics, it has electronics, embedded guys, hardware, lot of things, software, everything. इसमें कौन सा application है, product model है?
Product wali.
Product वाला.
Just at least they can have an idea of how it looks like,
Yeah.
and what can be the difference. This is actually very old.
It's a very old presentation. Here you can see it's a single color pyrometer. It is a silicon pyrometer. Silicon sensor is inside. Accuracy is 0.3%. Here I told you field of view 50:1 and 200:1. That means if you are using a pyrometer working in 50:1, that means from a distance of 1 meter, you are measuring a spot of 20 millimeter. 200:1, that means you are measuring 1 millimeter. So that is a special. The one is with a periscope and other one is with a laser light. This is good for metal application, metal, steel, then any induction heating, and if you want to look through glass with a window, you can use it. So in industry, many, say around 70% applications are solved by silicon or InGaAs pyrometer. Silicon pyrometer are good for 600 degree up to 3000 degree, and next one is an InGaAs pyrometer. Earlier one. Yeah, this is an InGaAs, indium gallium arsenide. It can measure from 250 up to 1800 degree in the same accuracy but different. field of view. This is a ratio pyrometer, two color pyrometer, you can say silicon, two wafer, two sensor. Then this is a fiber optic pyrometer. Pyrometer is connected to the optic through a fiber optic. This is for flame temperature measurement. Single color pyrometer with multiple fiber optic and optical head. Oh, this is very old. Okay. This is for glass industry. Yeah, this is for multi-wavelength pyrometer with a scanner. On the front side there is a scanner so that it can scan a big area. Black body is maybe discussing after. Yeah, again today evening I will be available in my office. So if you have any specific requirement as some specific solution, we can discuss that. Thank you very much.
I have one question.
Yeah.
Is the user expected to know the emissivity of the object, or there are some references available?
There are references available. There are references available, but as I show you in the first picture, you can see steel polished 40%. So there is no definition what is polished. You can polish to a mirror, you can polish to a semi-mirror. So there are, for simple is Omega. If you go to Omega handbook, there is around 40 pages is dedicated for this emissivity. But it's only an approximation. That is the difference between a pyrometer and a thermocouple. If you supply a thermocouple, we are just supplying it, we are not installing it. But a pyrometer, the most important, being a distributor like you, the most important part is, it's a young technology, customer don't understand this. You have to educate them. And the success of a pyrometer is totally dependent on the installation, how brilliantly you are installing it. If you are just supplying a pyrometer to your customer, he will install it at his convenient level and it will not measure accurately. So every time I will recommend, if it's a pyrometer working in lower wavelength for high temperature application, better you go and do it yourself. Or you educate your customer. These are the limitations, these are the things you have to take care. Yes, if pyrometer working in 8 to 14 micron, if they want to measure a kiln or they want to measure a hood of motor, so okay, no problem. There is not much inaccuracies. But high temperature application, maybe people from steel will be here. You see a ladle, preheating ladle, lot of disturbances will be there. So you have to find which area, which level, maybe you have to understand the process also. Today some train is going frequently from this 10 o'clock I went there, yes this is the ladle, I want to measure it, I put the pyrometer here. Then I understand that, oh 1 o'clock the train is resting here, which is carrying this ladle. So for 2-3 hours I have no measurement. So you have to see all these things. But thermocouple is very simple. You want to measure the kiln inlet, put in kiln inlet, is measuring. So the success of infrared technology is understanding the application, understanding the situation, understanding the atmospheric condition, and a very good personal touch with the customer. If he is selling a thermocouple to a customer, he is not asking, well, you need someone for installation. But here, installation is the heart of success.
Does it mean that the user must know the emissivity, or he has to take the help of the vendor every time?
No, it's approximation. Without knowing an approximate temperature, you cannot measure it. And fortunately, it is knowing. If it is a liquid steel, it cannot be 2500 degree. It cannot be at 600 degree. So we know that if it is a liquid steel, temperature is somewhere around 1400 or 1500. A steel billet is red hot. It cannot be 1600 degree. So you know that it is somewhere around 900 to this one. Cement, you know, yes, inside a cement kiln is maximum 1300 to 1400. It cannot be. So with that approximation, you set this emissivity. Yes, in some time there are very different applications which will take you time to set it. So for that what we do is, we compare with the thermocouple.
Normally it is compared with the thermocouple and that data is fed. That's the normal.
It cannot measure real absolute temperature. It can tune to that temperature. Yeah.
I'm having a black body wherein I do the calibration of parameters using the in master, say my emissivity I am setting to 0.95, and then I am getting a reading with a focal length of say 15 centimeters, I mean 150 mm from the surface of your on your scale. I am taking an example of calcium 1%. So if I put on to the device and retest, and if I find a variation with the same focal length, then what is the next measure I have to do?
Okay.
Say it's not lying within 0.3% of your measurement, I can say.
Okay. I'll tell you the reason. You have body, say calcis 1500, and you have master. What is the master? Which is the pyrometer you are using as a master?
Impact AS2, AS1, I don't remember the model.
Is it 140?
Yeah,
What is the temperature range?
the 600 to 1000.
No, then it's a silicon sensor, IGA. Sorry, IS5. IS5. It is working on 0.9 micron, and it may be a field of view of 200:1. And you are testing, what is your test pyrometer?
Test parameter is the older IW5.
IW5. It is working on 8 to 14 micron. No, IW is a very old analog pyrometer. IW, what is it, you know the wavelength?
Temperature range it is 650 degrees centigrade to 1300.
Okay. So, and you are getting a deviation. There are many reasons for that, because first thing is emissivity. Emissivity is directly depend on the wavelength. First thing. Body is not have the same emissivity for all the wavelength. Today you are using a silicon pyrometer, and your test may be at 8 to 14. So it has different emissivity. First thing. Second thing, you have to take care that IW is a very old pyrometer. If I am not wrong, it's somewhere around 20-year-old pyrometer, IW. So you have to see the quality of the lens, may be contaminated, and electronics may be saturated.
He's asking you how to correct it.
How to correct it? Changing the emissivity, that is the only way.
No, changing the emissivity, or you can change, like
Changing the emissivity.
you can tune the pyrometer again. There are special software what you
No, IW is not possible. IW is a total analog pyrometer.
Then you change the zero.
Tuning the emissivity is the way. Yes.
I just want to know whether am I doing some mistake without considering the spot size? Should the spot size be taken as a reference?
No, no.
Or you can
Spot
take
size,
the-
spot size. If you are using calcis 1500, if you are using a black body of calcis 1500, it has a practical aperture of 30 millimeter. Okay. So 30 millimeter is a quite big spot for any pyrometer, because you are using a distance, say 200 millimeter. From a 200 millimeter, your measuring spot is, and one thing you have to understand. Sorry, I will draw you. Maybe here you can see that. See, this is the way most of the lenses are focused. See, this is called working distance, say 500 millimeter, and this spot dia is say 1 millimeter. So this spot is not changing linearly. So if you put the pyrometer at 600 millimeter distance, so it is not that it is measuring 2 millimeter, it will change. So you have to see what is the spot ratio of your pyrometer and what is the working distance of your pyrometer. For example, I can tell you one thing. Our standard pyrometers have a working distance of 500 millimeter and spot size of 5 millimeter. And if you put it 200 millimeter distance, so it will not reduce the spot, it will increase the spot. Here, from lens to the working distance, it is 1 millimeter. So if I am putting it at 200 millimeter distance, here the spot is not 1 millimeter, it is maybe 5 or 6 millimeter. So first thing you have to take care, what is the working distance of your pyrometer, and put into that working distance. And there are software available. See this software, this calculation. If you know the aperture, working distance and spot size, you can calculate the different spot and different. So that is one thing you have to take care. Both should have the same spot, It is not necessary that both should be at the same distance. You go to our NABL laboratory, so you can see that we are getting pyrometer from Keller, we are getting from Micron, so everything has different working distance. So what we do is, test may be here and master may be here, because we have to see an approximate spot. It is not like that master is measuring 2 millimeter and test is measuring 20 millimeter. So spot size should be more or less equal, not distance, spot size.
So it should be on the reference of spot.
Yeah.
Spot should be lesser than the cavity diameter. That's what.
Thank you.
Any question is there, then ask what happens.
There's a handbook in your bag. It's explaining a little bit part of this.
Even in your software also, the only option available is by changing the visibility.
No,
Yeah.
we have other options, but that is only for people who know how to do it. That's why
Yeah, that's the problem, because if you are using an AST pyrometer, normally what we do is we give a simple software to our customer. I think we have 5 minutes time, so
The background why I'm asking this question is, our concept is very strict in not changing the process value in vicinity. Okay.
so better you change to AST. I will help you. Now what we are doing is, we have a single point calibration. Single point calibration means today you have a curve inside this software. By using Planck's law, we are putting into a curve, because how pyrometer is manufactured, there is a black body and there is a master pyrometer and the pyrometer to be calibrated. So at a particular temperature, this sensor is giving X amount of energy. We are measuring the energy. Then we take different points, then we put into Planck's curve. Okay. So after a few years, there may be a shift. So normally you have to do what? You have to send back to the customer, supplier, then they have to do a recalibration. The software normally, because if you give, they will manipulate every day with that. But here in India, we are so close to our customer. So what we do, we developed a software which is a single point calibration. So without moving the pyrometer from the process, say today you know that it's a molten glass, temperature is 1650 and mine is trading only 1600. So you just using this software, you can shift this graph again so that it will be linear for throughout this temperature range.